Today's podcast is so amazing. One of my favorite authors, Kendra Adachi, is joining us, and honestly, her book, The Lazy Genius Way, it changed my life. And I say this a lot, but it really did, because it gave me permission to embrace all the good stuff about being lazy. And it really reinforced my philosophy that doing things crappy and allowing yourself to not be perfect and to take shortcuts is the secret to not only getting more done, but being happier and feeling really proud of yourself in the end. So excited to be joined by Kendra today. She is the creator of the Lazy Genius brand and the author of multiple popular books. She's also known for her down-to-earth approach to managing life, and she has a podcast called the Lazy Genius Podcast. You're gonna love her just as much as I do. Are you ready to meet Kendra? Welcome, Kendra. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the Clutterbug podcast. Huge fan of your book. Also, I keep forgetting I'm buying it, and then I rebuy it. I officially have 3 copies.
Listen,
because
that's so kind. Thank you. And you're holding up the Lazy Genius Way, which she's my firstborn.
You know what? For a really long time, I'm a lazy person. Listen, I'm just going to say it. And for a really long time, my lack of effort in a lot of areas of my life, I saw as a really negative thing. And I vowed to remove the word lazy from my vocabulary because of it being seen as like this negative, toxic thing. You made it cool, man.
I did.
So
I
really appreciate that.
You're so welcome.
But also, listen, where did this come from? I know you've probably answered this question a million times, but this is such a unique outlook. I'm all like, I was just impressed. It's probably one of my favorite books I've ever written. And where did this inspiration come from?
That's really kind.
Were you always a lazy genius?
No. I was always a genius. I was a situation. I was the person that you wanted to be in charge of your group project, but the rest of you would talk about me behind my back because of like how intense I was. So yeah, I thought that I needed to do everything well. And so if I didn't think that I could do something perfectly or be the best at it, I just didn't try. So it was hardcore genius energy. And so that continued through like my 20s. I had my first kid when I was 27. I think that's right. I had my first kid when I was 27, and I was like, I'm going to be the best mom. I'm going to make all the food, and he's going to sleep so well. And I was just going to be this like Zen mother who had, her house was always clean. Like I just knew I just was like, I'm going to know what I'm doing. It's going to be fine. Well, that was hilarious because that's just not how life or parenting tends to work. And so when I had my second kid 2 years later, I swung the other direction where I was like, well, I'm not going to care about anything. Caring seems to not work very well because all I'm doing is failing at what I'm trying to be the best at. So let's just not care. Let's give up. And both of those postures to me were quite unsustainable because I actually do care. There are things in my life that I genuinely care about. And I want to put energy into them, and I want to put time and effort into them, money into them, and whatever the case may be. But I was sort of stuck in this or that mentality. It was like all or nothing. It's like, well, there's no third way here. So with the help of years of therapy and really healing relationships, and just kind of like learning that I would not explode if my to-do list did not get checked off, like things like that. Like, oh, we're all okay here. Like we're still surviving, and you did not put away the dishes yet. Like what a concept. Let's sit in this, let's sit in this space and see what happens. So I just lived in this third wide middle way for years, had another kid, and then went, man, a lot of people are holding on to this all or nothing energy big time. And there is another way. And so that's when I started my podcast, the Lazy Genius Podcast. And about 3 years after that, wrote the book, The Lazy Genius Way, that you have 3 copies of.
Can I, for a second, talk about my listeners who are listening? Here's something I've noticed. And I love that you say you used to be a genius and you equate like being a genius with doing everything perfectly. Most people who really struggle with clutter are perfectionists, which
Yeah.
is really surprising to me. And when I'm
Mhm.
going into clients' homes and helping them declutter, this is something I notice a lot. Maybe you could relate as your former self or anyone listening. It will be destroyed, okay? Their house will be, it'll be a wreck. And here they are, neatly, tilely folding their underpants into little triangles. You know, they're worried about all the details and they're not
Yeah.
seeing the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
this is why I love your book so much because it's giving people permission to say, broski, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Or it, it can it can matter if your underwear being folded neatly and kind of lined up like pretty socks in a drawer, like in a rom-com when a guy gets dressed or whatever. If that actually does matter to you for some reason, then and that for some reason is not like a judgmental for some reason, like genuinely, whatever your reason is for that mattering. What that means though is other things cannot.
Hmm.
And there not everything can matter, because if everything matters, nothing matters. So there's a trade-off with things, and you're allowed to choose. You're allowed to choose what your trade-off is. I remember there was a back in the day, it was when Instagram just began, and there were all of these moms that I followed who were posting photos of their days with their kids. And there was one woman that I really admired a lot with how she spent time with her kids. She just felt really present, and they were like, "Oh, I was doing crafts and I'm not a craft mom." I was like, that's not my journey." But I really admired her presence with her kids. And she did a post one day and she was like, "I get asked a lot how I'm able to do all these things with my kids." And she said, "My house is a wreck. My husband cooks. I don't," like, she listed out these things. And I thought, oh, look at that. She chose that that is the thing that matters the most to her in this season of life that she is in. And for me, it's not that I'm a bad person if I choose some tidiness, that I'd connect maybe with people, with my children a little bit better. Maybe when my space is like a little more tidy, or I can invite them into it, or I can do it at a different time when they're not around, like whatever. But actually, tidiness in my main living space, not in every room in the house, but in our main, just like living room, kitchen, that is something that matters a lot to me, because I have a hard time separating my ability to be present with my distraction by the stuff.
Hmm.
And so, in order for me to be present, it's actually really helpful for just the living room and the kitchen, literally no other room, for the living room and the kitchen. And when I say tidy, it's not clean. It's just stuff's like in baskets or stacked in piles, like in the corner of a table, so I can put my feet on the table with my mug of tea. Like that's what I mean. So essentially, there is a there. I would invite everybody to have more of an acceptance of, you're allowed to choose what matters to you, and it's almost always morally neutral.
Hmm.
Whatever you choose is almost certainly morally neutral. So you choose it, recognize that that means that not everything can matter, and then we just do the next thing.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, that's good. I was a slob for the majority of my life, like a huge slob. And I had this all or nothing mentality, and you talk a lot about this in the book. So I'm either a disaster or the opposite of that is like everything has to be perfect and everything lined up. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
no middle. And it wasn't until I embraced doing things really shitty. Honestly, like I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah,
okay. I don't have to file
it's
my
okay.
paperwork. I'm just going to put it in a
Yeah,
basket labeled paperwork. So it's
right.
done, but it's not done perfect. And then I took that to the extreme. Like instead of washing my entire kitchen floor on my hands and knees, which is what I thought you had to do, I would just like clean up a spill with my sock. But it
Mm-hmm.
like,
Sure.
instead of leaving it, which is what I did, I'm like, I'll leave it till I have time to do everything perfect
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
And that changed everything for me, giving myself
Yeah.
permission to really do it shitty. So I mean, yeah. How do you pick what is worth level genius? Obviously, a brain surgeon, please be a level genius while
That's right,
operating on my brain.
100%. Yes, that's right.
And
And bridges, people who make bridges. Those are the other people I would really like to like come to work with your A game. That feels important.
that's important. If life and death
Yeah.
pretty much come with the A game. But like the rest, the C, D, F game,
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff, but how do you know? Do you just like
Yeah.
innately know what to give your all and what to like phone it in? Because
Me personally?
listen, and people listening, because my perfectionists out there, my perfectionist friends, they think everything's important right now. They do.
Sure.
I'm in
Yeah.
their house and I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, that isn't. They're like, well, I'm gonna recycle this pickle jar or I'm gonna use it to this. Like even their pickle jars are important. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you know?
Yeah, I feel like a good metric for how hard a person is trying to make everything matter is how many bags of chicken carcasses you have in your freezer to make your own stock later.
Or rotten
That's
bananas for that banana bread. That's
for the
never
banana
happening.
bread.
It's
That's
never
so
happening.
genius. Listen to me, there's nothing more free. That's been one of the freest things for me is to be like, you're not making the banana bread, Kendra. Just put them in the trash can. This
Trash
costs 52 cents. 52. It's okay. Put them in the trash can. Now, that is my choice. That is my choice about what is going to matter to me. That is not going to be the choice of everyone. So broadly speaking, how do we name what matters to us? So I love that you have 3 copies of The Lazy Genius Way. I wrote that that came out in 2020. And my recent book that just came out like few weeks ago is called The Plan. And I have had some really fantastic realizations about naming what matters as I have written the plan and talked about it. And that is we we live in if you're a perfectionist listening, which it sounds like there's a lot of those, chances are you have read a good number of time management books, productivity books. You're always trying to find the hack, the system, the thing that the magic pill that's going to work. And I'm here to tell you that those aren't real. Um, that's the first thing, is that they're just not real. Part of it is we live in a culture where productivity is seen through a very narrow lens of greatness. That everything is about optimizing and leveling up and being the most efficient and creating a life that falls within certain boundary lines, and you kind of reverse engineer this ideal future that you see for yourself. Like, I'm going to have this house, my family's going to look like this, I'm going to have this much money, I'm going to there's a lot about our bodies. Sometimes like we look in the future at this life that we want to have, and then we are instructed to reverse engineer that ideal future. And so every day is essentially like checkboxing our way to this person that we think that we're supposed to be. But the majority, I couldn't think of the word, the majority of the people, and it's a high majority, it's 93%. The majority of the people who are teaching us the steps and the systems to achieve that are men.
Mhm.
93% of time management books are written by men. 70 to 90% of the people who buy time management books are women. So I'm just here to say, everyone, that the systems that have been presented to you are incomplete because of who is writing them. That's the first thing. But then the second thing is this idea of greatness that I mean, the American dream is essentially like hustle. It's hustle after what you want, like potential. Like, everybody has the ability to be an Olympic athlete. Listen, I don't know if anybody has seen me do anything athletic in any way. There's even curling. I'm out. Like, I have glass knees, those shoes. There's no way. Like, not everybody is able to do everything. It's
Also,
just kind of the way it goes.
why do we got to get up at 5 a.m. and have cold showers? Can I nope
We don't.
that, because that's not
You
happening?
can. And
Why
because
is
it doesn't
that
matter
the
to you.
message?
That's right. Because men aren't the ones who are typically, again, typically, they're not the ones who have been woken in the middle of the night by their children, or who are getting up with the children in the morning. They're, including my own husband. I will give him such side eye that he gets up and he has like a full uninterrupted hour in the bathroom, and he gets ready uninterrupted, and he comes into the kitchen and I'm making breakfast and getting the kids out. And, I've organized all the carpools. And now I say all that to say that is part of my role in our division of labor. Like, we have actively divided the things. So that's my thing that I've chosen. So I'm not listing that as a resentful thing. But he'll come in and sometimes I'm like, "Do you enjoy your morning? Do you enjoy your morning?" Like it's like a joke. But a lot of dudes, they're not necessarily part of that process, so they can't get up at 5 because they're not, whatever. My point is, we live in a society that celebrates and values and even upholds a goal of greatness that is in service to an invisible future that we're supposed to idealize and manufacture our way to get to. The tools that we are given to do that are written by people who do not have our lived experience, nor do they include our lived experience in it. And so that is why women are struggling, not because we're not good at things, not because you're a slob, not because you're too much of a perfectionist. It's because you're swimming in water that is meant to keep you under. Like, that's where we live. And so instead, if we can go, and listen, I'm not like against what the dudes are saying. A lot of the things that they say are really great. I love dudes. I'm so into dudes. And you're also allowed to be great at things. Like, you can be great at things. But what I'm offering here and why it's hard for us to name what matters is because that system tells us everything can. That system
Mm.
says that the reason that that you're struggling to prioritize all the things is because you haven't figured out how to properly prioritize. The problem is you. The problem is you. It's not you, everybody. It's not you. The problem is not you. The problem is the system is not built for you. And the goal is probably not yours in the first place. So instead, if we shift everything from a goal of greatness in a patriarchal society where women are expected to do more than men and are not supported as much as men are, if we shift it to, what if our goal every day is to just like be a kind person to ourselves
Mm.
with whatever's going on? What if that was the goal? What if we didn't see everything through the lens of, well, we need to do this better. We need to improve this. We need to level this up. We need to organize this drawer. We need to make sure that this meat and 3 gets on the table at a certain time. What if we removed that as the primary foundation for how we made decisions? What if instead our new foundation is, I'm going to start where I am today and I'm going to be kind to her. I'm going to be kind to myself today. I'm going to honor what I need. I'm going to honor where I am. It doesn't mean that I'm not focused on the future. It doesn't mean that I don't want to be good at things, but it means that that's not where I'm starting. That's not the purpose here. And when that happens, when you start to kind of practice that and notice how much greatness is in your life everywhere, it's just like in the cracks. It's like syrup that you just keep finding, in different like
Mm.
crevices of your living room and your kitchen. You're like, who even ate pancakes in here? Why is there syrup everywhere? It's so frustrating. Like, you're going to start seeing it. You're going to start seeing it everywhere. And the freedom that comes from being able to name what matters through the lens of, what's my season of life right now? What matters right now? And I'm going to be kind to who I am right now. This is not about service to this invisible future person. It just sort of like it removes the veil of get it together, do it all right. Because that's no longer the goal.
Mm.
We have a new goal, everybody. We have a new goal.
Which is just like being happy.
Yeah, it's being content. That's really what it is for me. It's about, because not everything is going to be rad all the time. I'm not even saying that that's a thing. Life is stressful. Life is busy. It's full. It's frustrating. It's full of grief and loss and hormones that do weird things. Like, it's full of children that also do weird things. There are lots of obstacles in our lives. So this isn't about controlling those obstacles from a more Zen approach. Instead, it's going, I am going to be right here. And if I catch myself resenting my present because I I want to be over there instead. That's normal. And I'm going to be kind to myself in that place. But also, I'm going to name that this is a season that I'm in. Now is not forever. There's good here right now. And I'm going to be kind to myself, even when I'm falling apart. That is a posture that promotes more growth than one would think.
Yeah,
Because
the
the hustle
negative.
on the other side doesn't really. We've been doing that for decades. Like I'm 40. I'm 42, and I wasn't any quote unquote further along from beating myself up to get further along than when I started. It's like
Mhm.
it doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. So what if we shift to just honoring our season, honoring what matters right now, having the permission to let the other stuff go because we no longer live through this lens of greatness at every turn and mastery of your time and all these things that people who do not live our lives tell us to do.
There's
It's
a
kind of
lot.
revolutionary,
Yeah.
actually.
There's so many expectations. There's so much pressure.
Yeah,
And
too
what
much
if we
pressure.
just didn't, yeah, give in to that? What if we thought about the things that we're not doing for other people, right? Like, are you worried
Mm,
about making this gourmet dinner every night because you're worried about what people think about your cooking, or do you actually enjoy cooking?
sure. That's right. Exactly. It gets you to a place of naming what genuinely matters to you,
Mm.
not what you think should matter to you based on cultural expectations. Because and sometimes those are the same thing. Sometimes your behaviors might not even shift, but you now have, let's say because the dinner thing is a great example because the eating is constant. The cooking and the eating and the feeding is a constant thing. And so let's say that you cook every night. But what if you're doing it out of obligation to your family, or because that's how your mom did it, or that's how your partner's mom did it, and so you feel like you have to kind of measure up in the same way, and you do kind of enjoy it to a point, but like on days that you wish you could just not, you don't feel like you have that ability to let it go. Or if you feel like you do let it go, then really you're swinging to the other side of, well, I guess we're just going to have frozen pizza all the time, like it's that all or
Right.
nothing thing again.
Yeah.
But instead, if you're like, you know what, I really do like cooking. I do like, maybe it's you like trying new like techniques, or you enjoy following a recipe because it's something that's like sort of predictable, or maybe you like making it up because it's really creative and you don't get to be creative, or maybe you like to make the same 7 things over and over because it's like so deeply comforting, like whatever it is. But if you make that choice of like, this is a priority for me now in this season, not forever, but like this is something that matters now, and I can my expectations of this thing do match the energy that I have and the ability that I have in the season to do it. You might still cook, but what a different vibe in your own body when you're doing it. It's coming from
Mhm.
such a richer, more whole, integrated place. So it's not so much about like behavior modification. It's changing the way we see, which sometimes leads to behavior modification, but from a place that's like, no, this actually matters.
Mhm. And changing the way you talk to yourself. I mean, this was a really big one
Yes.
for me, like, living in clutter. I said I didn't care. I said, like, good moms had messy
Mm.
houses, good moms have
Yep,
sticky
that's right.
floors, you
That's
know?
right. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
It's on
"Oh,
pillows. You
I
can
don't
buy a
wanna
pillow that says that.
I don't wanna be like A type. Oh, only neurotic
Hmm.
clean freaks have those spotless homes. They're no fun." Like, this is
That's
the
right.
narrative I told myself to kind of
Yes.
make it feel okay, but the truth was I
Yep.
hated my house and I hated myself for not being able to keep it, and
Hmm.
I finally got mad at the stuff instead of myself. Like, I didn't
Mm.
change until I thought, well, this none of this crap even matters. I'm sick of
Mm.
moving it. I'm sick of managing it. And I just went like insane with a trash bag, like some sort of
Big black trash bag
psychopath.
energy. There
And
it
I was
is. I
just
have a name
throwing
for it.
I was just throwing everything in the garbage. And when I
Yeah.
share this story with people, I get a lot of like, oh, well, you should recycle and you should donate and your blankets should go to the Humane Society and blah, blah, blah. And again, there's these rules and expectations, even how we
Mhm.
save ourselves when we're drowning. It's
Sure,
like you're
sure.
drowning, you're trying to get out of the lake, and someone's like, your swimming technique is not proper. And you're like,
Right.
what?
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
talking about, man? I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get out. I'm just trying to like get my head above the water. And for me, I had to get mad and I had to say, you all suck. All this stuff sucks. It doesn't even matter. The only thing that matters is my peace of mind. And I can't manage this much. And I'm throwing it in trash bags. And that was the single greatest thing that ever happened to me because when all of that excess was gone, I now had space in my life and in my mind and in my like it was amazing. But the only thing
Mhm.
that changed was how I talk to myself. Instead of blaming
Mhm.
myself for the mess, I blame the stuff for the mess. And I can't put myself in a trash bag. You know what I mean?
Right, right. I
Um,
know. I
it
know.
it absolutely changed my life. One of your chapters is the magic question. This
Mhm.
is like, again, another thing. I didn't know it was called the magic question, but this is another mindset shift for me that changed everything. And your magic question is, what can I do now to make life easier later? Do you still, like, I know it was a few years ago while you wrote this book, is this still like a core belief for you?
Oh yeah, it's almost like intuitive at this point. Like I don't think about it very much, but the key with the magic question I think is you can sub in anything for the word life, and honestly the smaller the thing the better. So rather than saying like what can I do, you could say what can I do to make dinner easier later? But even making it like what can I do to make dinner prep easier later? What can I do to make dinner vibes easier later? Now you don't answer all those things. Like that's one of the things that people who sort of swing on the genius side of lazy genius, they sort of they don't really trust their future selves. They don't remember that their future selves are actually really competent. And the point of the magic question is just to give you like one little leg up, to do like maybe something that will just make it easier later, not 20 things that do it. But yeah, like I I do it all the time. Like, it's pulling out the ground beef for dinner. It's putting the like going into the pantry and getting the jar of sauce and the box of pasta and putting water in the pot and just leaving the pot on the stove to heat up 4 hours later. It's like it's these tiny things. It's writing tomorrow's work to-do list before I leave my
Mm.
desk today. It's just these sort of things. I tend to naturally think that way. And so it's something that comes fairly naturally, but it's not it again, bringing back this lens of greatness. The goal here for the magic question is not to like make you awesome at the magic question. It's just a tool. It's just a neutral tool. It's not something that you get better at. It's just a neutral tool. But even tools like that, when we look at them through that lens of greatness, it's like the swimming metaphor that you just said. You're drowning and you're trying to get to shore, and people are like, your form is bad. Those are people who are living still through the lens of greatness. They're still looking through this lens of you're supposed to do everything right. Get it together. You're supposed to do all the things really well. And if you can't, then you're the problem. And so even things like this magic question, the goal here is not to like be awesome at it or to use it every day, or it is simply a neutral tool that you can use when it's helpful for you. And sometimes it might not be as helpful as you hoped, and that's also okay. Again, it's all very neutral. um we just need to take the like the mastery off of everything, again, unless you are a brain surgeon or building bridges.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to master your life and your time, and because when you're focused on mastering everything, mastering your stuff, mastering your body, mastering your calendar, you're not really living. You're distracted by honestly this moving finish line that you're not going to be able to cross. Like, because that's how the industry's built. Honestly, it's 75% of self improvement people are repeat customers. The
Mm.
industry dies. The industry dies if we're like, you know what? I don't need any more tools. I feel good with what I've got. Let's just keep rolling. This is fine. The industry dies. So
You're right.
that
If we
that
actually got
energy,
our life together and didn't need the self-help books, the industry would die because it's the same group of people.
it's the same group of people. And so even so that's why they're telling you you're still trying to get your life together. There are different ways that it's sort of structured and positioned and marketed to say you need to get your life together. And it's that idea of like, yeah, when you clean out your house, when you put everything in your butt, you've got to recycle, you've got to donate the things or donate. You need to make sure that you're being irresponsible if you're not A, B, and C.
And
And
like, what if your
that's not
life
necessarily true.
yeah, and what if your life is together? I mean, still, I was
Yeah.
chasing this thing for a long time and never getting to the top of the mountain. I was climbing and climbing, and there was always another peak. And then I thought, you know what? My life was never better until I did less. Like
Mm-hmm.
my life got better when I was crappier at it. When I gave
Yeah.
myself permission to suck in a lot of different areas, I improved. My life was like, "Oh, I'm managing more," because you can't do it all perfectly. You can't do it all well. It's a recipe for disaster. So when you give yourself permission to say, "I'm not doing that and I'm not doing that, and if I'm going to do that, it's going to be with a wet sock,"
Mm-hmm.
level
Sure.
shit, then
Mm-hmm.
absolutely everything. Okay, before I let you go, I want to just talk about one thing that to me it's a lot like your magic question. I started thinking about tomorrow's me as my best friend. And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean
That's
by that,
cute.
yeah, is like would I do that to my best friend?
Yeah,
So
that's really
I don't
good.
want to clean the dishes today. I'll do it tomorrow. Would I make my best friend tomorrow clean my dirty dishes today?
Mm-hmm.
Freak no. Or anything I kick off to like, oh, tomorrow she's going to work extra hard or she's going to get up extra early tomorrow or whatever it is, that little like shifts in my mindset changed everything because sometimes it's like I don't want to do it today and I don't want her to have to do it either. That just goes off my list instead of
Mm-hmm.
burdening tomorrow's me with all this expectation and all this pressure. Tomorrow I'm going to be so amazing. I can't be amazing today. I don't have it. But tomorrow I'm expected to do. That's crazy. But this is such a
Mm-hmm.
human nature trait that we do. I think especially as women, we just keep kicking the can and piling on tomorrow us.
I do think that's true. And I think I want to offer a caveat to that as well, though, which is sometimes, like, there have been times where I was so, I get migraines and, and recently I had like such a terrible migraine and I didn't have anybody to take care of me and I kind of needed to. Like I was starting to have a panic attack because I couldn't get better. And I called my best friend who lives a few blocks away and she was home thankfully. And I was like, "Can you come?" And she came and she said, and I had groceries on the counter that had been delivered that I had to bring in because I needed to bring them in. I didn't expect to have a migraine when the groceries were delivered. And I had groceries out there, and the dishwasher wasn't unloaded, and the kids are going to have to eat dinner when they get home very soon, and all these different things. And um, and in that time, I was so grateful to have I don't want to use the word courage. I don't know. That sounds kind of cheesy, but just the trust, maybe the trust in my relationship with her to go when she was like, "What do you need?" And I said, "There's groceries in the kitchen." She was like, "Got it." And she went and did all those things. Now I realize that's not fully what you're saying, but there are times where I think that we push through today at the like to save tomorrow us.
Mm.
But what it does is it actually puts today us, it doesn't honor who we are today. Because there are some days where I can say to myself, because I actually really love that question. Like what I ask my best friend to wash my dishes tomorrow. And if I'm in bad enough shape for whatever reason, I would, because I know she loves me and I know that she would want to help me. And I might have the energy to stand next to her and sort of do it. It's kind of, I don't know. It's like, it's a strange
Oh,
metaphor that
I
I'm trying to
like
mix
that.
here,
Yes. No, I see
but
what you're saying. There are some days we
there
have to
are
depend
days.
on our best
Yes,
friend. And if it's
we
coming from
do.
a place of love, I think if we love tomorrow's us,
Yes,
that's really the difference. Because you're right, there's lots of days I can't, and I count on my best friend tomorrow to get me, and she's got me. But I don't want
hmm
to kick it onto her out of like a cruelty, which some
sure. Which, where that comes from, because I want you to love today's you, not just tomorrow's you. You want to honor today's you, but also where that comes from, that kicking the can down the road, is the expectation that everything needs to be done a certain way and be great. And we know that we don't have the capacity to make it great today. And so we're like, well, I guess we'll do it later. And that's when sort of the buildup happens, because the goal is not our goal. That's the thing. That's like the take the glasses off where you're like, whoa, is the goal is not for you to be great at everything. And you start to see it. You just start to see it in those things, in these little moments of your life where even in when you're like, am I going to ask my tomorrow self, my tomorrow best friend, who I love very much, just as much as I love today's, like, let's be with both of them right now, and let's remember that being great is not the point. Being kind to who we are in this moment is the point. Being a whole person right now and honoring that today is the point. What do I need right now? And sometimes it's wait till tomorrow. Sometimes it's magic question it and do one little thing to kind of prepare for tomorrow. Sometimes it's not always even the same answer. It's that's the thing. That's another thing. I get so riled up about this. That is another thing that the industry teaches us, is that it is, you make one decision, you set up one life, and then you follow through. You create a plan and you work the plan until you die.
yeah.
And you don't change course, you don't pivot. If you hit obstacles, the problem is you. No, ma'am, that is not true. We don't have to live under that paradigm. We don't have to. So I'll try to stop talking so I don't get hot about other topics. But we can live under, we can live with a new way of seeing, which is like, let's just be a person today and pay attention to what we need and what matters today. And as we practice that and we're present with that, over time, we do have a greater ability to maybe look into the future even more, to make some of these bigger shifts in our lives, but we will, it's like you said, we will actually have more sort of movement and growth and success in the places that matter to us when we let go of trying to master them.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, thank you so much for being here. I could talk to you all day. I feel inspired. I want to go sit in my hot tub and relax with like it's good. I'm like I deserve a break over
Yeah, you
here.
do. Yeah, you
Yeah,
do.
I do. Okay, please let my listeners. I'm immediately going to go buy 3 copies of your new book. So
Of the play.
I'm just going to have an entire bookshelf dedicated to Kendra.
I'm
This is
into
very
it.
exciting. But
I'm into
please let
it.
my listeners know where they can get your books and your new book, and where they can listen to you and where they can follow
Yeah.
you.
So everything is at our website, thelazygeniuscollective.com. The new book is called The Plan. Manage Your Time Like a Lazy Genius. And it is not to be dramatic, but like, I really feel like my life and my work led to this book. Like, this book is sort of the purpose of all my stuff. And it's just been the coolest thing to see women and men like experience these glasses coming off and putting on a new pair and feeling more like themselves and still getting their stuff done. Like, it's a really magical thing. So that book is The Plan. The book that Cass already has 3 copies of is The Lazy Genius Way. and, and then I have a show, The Lazy Genius Podcast, with episodes that come out every Monday. And again, all of it is at thelazygeniuscollective.com.
Thank you so much for being on the Clutterbug podcast. And thank you to all of my listeners. I know you're feeling just like, just as good as I am right now. I hope you have an incredible day, and we'll see you next time.